Good evening and welcome to tonight's bedtime story. Today we'll explore the story of Sleeping Story, what made Socrates challenge tradition. Find a comfortable position and let yourself relax. Let this story carry you through a peaceful night. Ready? Let's begin. In Athens, the life of a philosopher was a dance between mythic glory and the heavy cost of inquiry. For Socrates, the founder of this paradox, the pursuit of wisdom was both exhilarating and weighty. His humble abode, scented with olive oil and ancient scrolls, was a sanctuary where ideas took form. The flickering of a lone candle mirrored the ceaseless ebb and flow of his thoughts that sought to peel back the veil concealing true knowledge. Outside, Athens vibrated with life, its spirited symphony reaching Socrates like a distant echo through wooden shutters. Market vendors beckoned, children laughed, and the blacksmith's rhythmic hammer spoke of a city ever in motion, a familiar chaos that invigorated Socrates' quest for understanding, yet from which he momentarily receded. In these quieter moments, he delved deeper into the recesses of moral and ethical conundrums. For Socrates, the abstract world was as real as the well-worn scrolls on his desk. The essence of virtue, justice, and the good life were not just musings, but the very fabric of his existence. True knowledge was a mirage, forever shimmering on the horizon, yet each question he posed chipped away at ignorance, inching closer to clarity. Surrounded by the echoes of past dialogues, with minds like Plato and Xenophon as his imagined audience, Socrates was never truly alone. The candle's warm glow provided illumination, not just for the room, but for his journey through the tangled corridors of thought, an endless voyage fueled by unyielding curiosity. In the crucible of these moments, Socrates found tranquility, a calm forged through the relentless pursuit of understanding, knowing well the delicate balance between the glory of intellectual discovery and its burdensome demands. The small, dimly lit room was a sanctuary, cradling the philosopher in an embrace of quietude. Flickering candlelight cast wavering shadows on the stone walls, conjuring ghostly forms that danced to the rhythm of the warm, flickering illumination. The faint aroma of beeswax and parchment filled the air, mingling with the earthy scent of the worn, wooden furniture. Socrates, clad in a simple chiton, worn thin by the years of philosophical pilgrimage, sat cross-legged upon a hard stool, a position that he found surprisingly comfortable despite its austerity. The surrounding silence was thick and profound, a weighty presence that pressed against the eardrums yet offered a canvas for the maestro of thought. It was a silence that brimmed with possibility, as if the universe had paused to listen to the musings of the man known for questions rather than answers. Socrates welcomed this pervasive quietude, allowing it to filter through his consciousness like a gentle stream, cleansing the clutter of the mundane and making space for the raw essence of ideas. In these moments, his mind was a tempest, swirling with the tumultuous winds of inquiry, as if each thought were a droplet of rain in a vast storm. The internal dialogue served as a metronome of sorts, steady and unwavering. As he questioned notions of justice and virtue, peeling back layers of pretense and preconception, there was no audience to witness the subtle nods of his head or the introspective furrows that creased his brow. Each query was deliberate and thoughtful, a stone cast into the endless sea of his own intellect, causing ripples that expanded and collided in a dance as intricate as life itself. Inwardly, Socrates reveled in the acceptance of his own ignorance, a daring paradox. A paradox that led not to despair, but to a deeper yearning for understanding. It was a humility that bred wisdom, allowing him to navigate this world with the awareness of his own limitations. "I know that I know nothing," he often proclaimed, a mantra that stripped bare the pretensions of false knowledge. Yet, within this acknowledgement lay the liberation of endless possibilities and the freedom to traverse philosophical landscapes unconstrained by conventional boundaries. Despite the clarity of this internal pursuit, a vein of solitude ran deep, an ever-present undercurrent that underscored his thoughts with a touch of melancholy. There was a loneliness in the path he walked, a distance from those incapable of perceiving the depths of his dialogue with the self. Friends and fellow Athenians often saw him as a gadfly, ever prodding, ever questioning, yet few could fathom the depths of his pursuit. The solitude was a shadow, yes, but it was also a forge. It tempered his resolve, shaping a mind capable of withstanding the impending challenges that loomed like dark clouds on the horizon. Challenges that were ominous whispers in the quiet corners of his mind, growing louder with each step he took in defiance of the status quo. He foresaw the trials yet to come, both metaphysical and tangible, but faced them with an embrace that spoke of courage and conviction. Thus, within his silence, Socrates dwelled a figure solitary yet unfettered, wrapped in thoughts as ancient yet timeless as the weighty temple stones of Athens. Here he wove his own philosophy, stitch by stitch, into the endless tapestry of human comprehension, where the simplest of revelations bloomed into the purest forms of wisdom. Fortified by solitude, emboldened by questions, his voyage was continuous, illuminated by the flickering wisdom, shared only with his ethereal realm of thought. The flickering candle cast a warm yet tenuous glow over the small, cluttered room where Socrates sat, its light illuminating delicate scrolls and casting long shadows that danced across the stone walls. Each shadow wove a tapestry upon the plaster, a silent testament to the interplay of darkness and light that mirrored the philosophical explorations within the great thinker's mind. Outside, the city of Athens lay enrobed in the velvety hush of the evening. The usual clamor of its bustling streets softened to a distant whisper, allowing the night to steep gently into stillness. The room was filled with the scent of beeswax and olive oil, rich and soothing, grounding Socrates in the reality of his modest surroundings, even as his contemplations took flight beyond them. The air was cool and carried a faint trace of the sea, a reminder of the port city's vast connections to lands and ideas afar. Socrates sat cross-legged on the firm wooden floor, the weight of the day's dialogues lingering in the woolen fabric of his worn robe. The texture against his skin was rough, but familiar, offering a small comfort as he turned inward, his thoughts a whispering stream probing the hidden caverns of existence. His fingers absent-mindedly traced the grain of the floorboards, each ridge under his fingertips a tangible touchpoint to the concrete world, as his mind traversed the abstract landscapes of thought. As the flame flickered, he reflected upon the discussions of the day debates with eager young minds from Athens, each conversation an attempt to pull the internal musings of the soul into the external realm of shared understanding. Today, they had grappled with the essence of justice, the interplay of virtue and vice, a dialogue rigorous yet nuanced, where questions bred more questions, a cascade of philosophical inquiry that seemed never-ending. He remembered the earnest eyes of young Plato as they discussed the nature of truth, the boy's mind sharp and observant, ready to challenge and be challenged. There, amidst the fervent exchange, Socrates felt the familiar thrill of the dialectic process, the gradual peeling away of ignorance to reveal some glimmering facet of wisdom, however dim. This knowledge, birthed through dialogue, was not without tension. It was the product of a profound collision between beliefs, where the sparks of thought illuminated both learner and teacher. In those quiet moments, Socrates reflected on his role, more midwife than master, guiding others towards the birth of understanding, yet aware of his own continuous quest for knowledge. Each new question posed was an invitation to deepen his exploration, to tread those uncertain paths that lay beyond the boundaries of current comprehension. The flame before him now ebbed subtly, a gentle reminder of impermanence, its transient beauty mirrored in the ceaseless unfolding of inquiry. The night outside held a vast, inviting emptiness, an uncharted territory for future dialogues that stretched endlessly, like the shimmering constellations above. The stars, pinpricks of light in the vast Athenian sky, charted their own circuitous dialogue with the universe, ancient yet enduring. Socrates, aware of the temporal limits of his mortal quest, surrendered to the night's calm embrace, renewed by the quiet promise it held for discovery and the continuous evolution of thought. As the candle burned steadily, Socrates felt a serene certainty that his path, though shrouded in mystery, was one carved deeply into the annals of time, paving silently yet indelibly for future generations to travel upon the paths of inquiry and enlightenment, stretching invincibly forward, like the steady constellations guiding intrepid travelers through the night. The Agora of Athens stood as a bustling convergence of trade, politics, and philosophy, a kaleidoscope of human activity, and an emblem of civic life. As the sun cast its golden light over the worn stones and scattered marble columns, a mosaic of voices filled the air, a harmonious cacophony echoing through the open space. Traders shouted their wares, offering everything from vibrant textiles to jars of honey, their voices weaving through the ambient murmur like threads in a tapestry. The tantalizing aroma of roasted meats mingled with the sharp fragrance of exotic spices, carried by the gentle caress of an autumn breeze. Near the food stalls, clouds of steam rose from fresh bread, its warmth inviting passers-by to pause and indulge. Amidst this sensory symphony, Socrates moved with an apparent indifference to the commercial allure that enthralled his fellow Athenians. His attire was simple, almost ascetic, a plain cloak hanging loose over a frame that seemed both sturdy and disheveled, much like the mind it housed. He sidestepped offers of trinkets and trifles, his attention consumed by a different kind of currency. To the artisan selling pottery and the woman hawking olives, Socrates might have appeared just another city philosopher. But his gaze was keen, and as he paused among the crowds, it was clear he inhabited a different sphere. His eyes, dark and probing, settled on those around him not with the intent to judge, but to question, always questioning. What is justice? What is virtue? These inquiries hung in the air alongside the shouts of the marketplace, invisible yet potent. Within this vibrant environment, Socrates often sought out the company of youthful minds, those eager to be led into the labyrinth of self-examination and reflection. He would draw a small circle of listeners, his voice low yet arresting, unraveling and dissecting the fabric of societal norms. "Why do you believe the laws as they are to be just?" he would ask, his tone inviting rather than accusatory. His companions, from young scholars to weary merchants resting from their labors, would pause, sometimes uncomfortable in the spotlight of his inquiry, yet inescapably drawn into the dance of dialogue. As he spoke, the agora itself seemed to respond, a microcosm suspended in the warp and weft of time. The clatter of bronze coins and the laughter of children weaving through the air were the sounds of a city alive in tradition, yet Socrates' words carved a quiet path through the noise, challenging its very foundations. The tension between tradition and innovation sparked a subtle electricity, an undercurrent that vibrated through the stones beneath their feet. Time seemed to stretch in these moments, each conversation a journey deep into the canyons of thought, the agora transforming into a theater where the grand play of ideology unfolded. When Socrates' words stumbled into silence, whether met with earnest nods or befuddled frowns, they left an indelible impression, as if the listener were emerging from a dimly lit cave into the sharp clarity of daylight. Thus, the agora became not just a place of commerce, but a crucible where ideas clashed and coalesced, where wood broke beneath the pressure of philosophical flame. And Socrates, ever the gadfly, stoked these fires, his presence an unyielding testament to the power of discourse, a relentless pursuit of wisdom and truth in the heart of Athenian life. The agora buzzed with the lively hum of barter and debate, a cacophony of commerce and conversation that filled the air with the scent of ripe olives, freshly baked bread, and the occasional whiff of sweat from vendors who had started their day well before dawn. Here, sunlight scattered across the marble columns like liquid gold, and shadows moved lazily, as if indifferent to the pressing matters discussed beneath them. In the midst of this vibrant arena moved Socrates, a figure both known and enigmatic, with his unshaven beard and simple robes contrasting sharply against the richly dyed fabrics fluttering in the morning breezes. His gait was unhurried, a meandering sidestep to the bustling urgency around him, his eyes scanning the crowd with an intensity that seemed to pierce through the noise. Young Athenians, drawn to him as if by invisible strings, gathered eagerly, forming a loose semicircle that buzzed with anticipation. Their eyes shone with the bright eagerness of minds ready to be molded, drawn to Socrates' method like moths to a flame. In their presence, Socrates' voice was both gentle and piercing, each word infused with the suspicion that truths lay hidden beneath the layers of common assumptions, waiting to be unearthed by a well-aimed question. Yet, the agora, a crossroad of culture and classes, was also littered with the murmurs of dissent. Older men, seasoned merchants, and weary politicians cast wary glances his way, their minds clouded with the unease of traditionalists. For these men, Socrates' methods were a kind of sorcery, his rhetorical games a threat to the fabric of society. Whispers slithered among them like serpents. He questions the god's will. His inquiries undermine the city's peace. The air grew more charged with every skeptical murmur, the disharmony hummed, and even the birds paused in their song as if to listen. Still, Socrates remained unfazed, as if impervious to such criticism. Instead, he engaged with Athens' youth. His dialogue, colored with irony and playful provocation. His inquiries, ever probing, had a rhythm that mirrored the very pulse of the city, a series of penetrating questions, each probing deeper into the soul. His voice was both a whisper and a thunderclap, a summons to those around him to abandon comfort for the unsettling embrace of doubt. The conversations, like frescoes newly painted, began to transform the landscape of thought. Each question was a deliberate stroke, each answer a vivid hue that contrasted starkly against the dullness of unchallenged traditions. Those who listened felt as though they were part of a grand tableau, one where every stroke of Socrates' philosophical brush revealed new facets of reality. In these exchanges, the marketplace itself seemed to respond to the unfolding drama, the air shimmering with an unseen energy. The symphony of sounds, the haggling merchants, the clucking of chickens, the distant clatter of hooves against stone blended into the background, a harmonious accompaniment to the more profound melody of inquiry and introspection that Socrates orchestrated. In the end, the agora was not merely a place of trade. It was the stage of a philosophical revolution. Here, under the blazing Athenian sun, amidst shadows both literal and metaphorical, truths and doubts danced in an eternal waltz, choreographed by the sagacious guide who spun through reason's infinite compass. The sun's last rays draped themselves languidly over the bustling heart of Athens, casting long shadows that danced along the stones of the agora. The heat of the day surrendered to a gentle breeze, carrying with it the salty tang of the nearby sea and the mingling aromas of roasting meats and fresh herbs from the market stalls. Vendors, their voices growing hoarse, haggled over the last remnants of their goods, while elsewhere, the laughter of children wove through the columns, intertwining with the low murmur of adult conversation. Here in the agora, a tapestry of human experience unfolded. Artisans displayed their intricate works, amphorae and jewelry glinting under the fading light, telling silent stories of skill and creativity. Merchants packed away their wares with the efficient hands of those accustomed to both profit and loss, while philosophers and citizens alike gathered in small, tight-knit circles. Their discussions ebbed and flowed. Loud opinions softened into contemplative murmurs as day gave way to evening. In one such circle, amid the fluted columns, stood a figure of humble yet commanding presence, Socrates, his chiton simple but his presence profound. The air seemed to crackle with the energy of intellectual pursuit as he posed questions that rippled outward through the crowd. Each inquiry felt like a cool drink of water, refreshing the mind and spirit of those who engaged with it. His dialogues were not mere conversations, but rather an emboldening of the soul, a gentle but persistent prodding toward wisdom. The participants leaned in, hungry for the transformative power of these exchanges. Socrates posed a question, one that sailed through the evening air like an arrow shot towards the heavens, seeking not a target but greater understanding. "What is justice?" he might have asked, his voice steady and rich with curiosity. The question lingered, absorbed into the fabric of the evening, its implications leaving the listeners searching within themselves for answers not so easily grasped. As shadows lengthened, the agora gradually yielded its vibrancy to the thrum of nocturnal life. Torches flickered to life, their soft flames licking the cool night air, casting a warm, inviting glow over the marble and limestone structures. Underneath this canopy of stars, the agora took on a demeanor of quiet introspection, a grand philosopher itself holding the wisdom and folly of the day within its wide embrace. Amid this transformation, attention dissolved a release as though the agora exhaled, allowing new possibilities to take flight into the ether. These lingering conversations, fueled as much by the resignation of day as by the cool promise of night, drifted like wisps of smoke, encouraging deeper thought, greater reflection. In the silence of the evening, with the eternal city of Athens as their witness, a quiet confidence settled among the people, a belief in the mysteries yet to be unraveled, the knowledge yet to be discovered. The agora was no longer just a place of commerce, but a haven for the spirit, a space where one could dwell in the possibilities of thought, the boundlessness of curiosity. As the people dispersed, making their way back to their homes, their minds buzzed with the echoes of dialogue, carrying with them seeds of philosophical pondering that would grow and blossom under the starry firmament, ensuring that the new day would commence not with mere routine, but enriched with the promise of enlightenment and understanding. In a courtroom steeped in the austere gravitas of Athens' deepest traditions, the air was thick with anticipation, carrying the scent of aged wood and the faint musk of countless philosophical debates that had once swirled around the agora. Flickering torchlight danced across the stone walls, casting long, wavering shadows that seemed to whisper of the complex tapestries of justice and morality woven through the city's storied past. At the center of this gathering stood Socrates, a figure distinguished not by opulent robes or a commanding physical presence, but by an aura of profound serenity. His eyes, bright yet gentle, scanned the assembly constellation of Athenians whose souls were as varied as the stars that blinked just beyond the walls. Here were the elders with their long beards, a tapestry of experience and tradition. The youth, eager to witness a moment of transformation, and his accusers, faces taut with a mixture of righteousness and unease. The air hummed with barely restrained tension, a taut string waiting to be plucked. Somewhere in the back, a cough punctuated the silence, echoing off marble pillars like a distant warning. It was as if the city herself held her breath, waiting to see how one man's fate would ripple through her streets and squares. Socrates, unmoved by the electric atmosphere thickening around him, stood not as a defiant symbol of rebellion, nor as a penitent at the mercy of the state. To him, this was not merely a moment of personal reckoning. It was the ultimate test of a life lived in pursuit of wisdom and virtue. His inner reflection was calm, unbroken, a deep river of thought flowing steadily beneath his composed exterior. He did not fear the outcome, for he believed the soul's journey continued beyond temporal judgments. As he addressed the court, his voice was steady, enriched with a timbre that resonated throughout the room, filling the nooks and crannies with the essence of inquiry. Each word was measured, not rushed, as if he were in dialogue with not just men, but with truth itself. An unexamined life, he proposed, is not worth living. The phrase hovered like incense, challenging the assembly to look within, beyond the confines of the legal proceeding and into the very marrow of human existence. As Socrates spoke, the faces before him morphed from rigid concentration to moments of introspective doubt, as though grappling with the seeds of questions newly planted. He embodied a paradox: condemned yet free, judged yet unconstrained. His words dripped with the weight of philosophical introspection, unwinding like an ancient fable with a pertinence that was both timeless and immediate. Outside, the city went about its twilight business, oblivious to the philosophical storm unfolding beyond its boundaries. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the final light against the Acropolis, a glowing ember of civilization's aspirations. In this courtroom, however, the decision loomed like an inevitable tide. As Socrates' discourse drew to a close, an enforced silence fell once more, punctuated only by the rustling of robes and the soft footfall of fate approaching. Whatever the verdict, Socrates had lit a flame that would flicker through the ages, a testament to the indomitable spirit of inquiry and the unwavering pursuit of truth. The silent tableau, a sea of faces caught between judgment and awe, served as a reminder that the trial of Socrates was more than a moment in judicial history. It was a clarion call through the corridors of time, echoing with the enduring question: what does it truly mean to be wise? The modest chamber in which Socrates found himself was austere, the walls unadorned save for the play of flickering shadows cast by an oil lamp that fought the encroaching dusk. Its wavering light danced across the ancient stones, outlining the creases of his weathered visage, marks of time, and thought etched into his skin like the rings of an ancient tree. The air was tinged with the faint, bittersweet aroma of olive oil, that most perennial essence of Athens. Socrates' voice, as he engaged his companions in dialectic exchange, was a melody both firm and gentle. His tone, unwaveringly calm, emanated from a foundational belief in the virtue of knowledge and the soul's immortality. This serenity, radiating like a soft yet persistent light, seemed to challenge the oppressive gloom that lingered outside these walls, a world fraught with discord and misunderstandings. He sat amongst his pupils with a demeanor that was both inviting and intimidating, a living paradox. His eyes, reflecting glints of the bronze lamp flame, were deep wells of both inquisitiveness and kindness, a combination that disarmed and emboldened his interlocutors to explore the recesses of their understanding. The scent of aged parchment and well-used scrolls created a backdrop that seemed to hum with the murmurs of past wisdom. As if engaging in an invisible dance, Socrates maneuvered through the philosophical discourse not with the intent to ensnare, but to liberate. Each carefully measured word fell into the room like a melodic drop of water in a still pond, rippling outward to touch all present. His gift was not in providing answers, but in teasing them forth, like a gardener coaxing blossoms from the soil. Socrates' own reflections played silently across his mind like shadows on those stone walls, a tapestry of thoughts concerning duty, virtue, and the destiny of the soul. He mused silently on the nature of the human condition, recognizing the ephemeral nature of life, yet with firm belief in its potential to attain eternal truths. A warmth spread through his chest as he reaffirmed the choice to embrace wisdom over fear, thought over ignorance. His pupils observed his controlled poise, a beacon of ethical conduct. Their hearts and minds were bound by an invisible thread, encouraged by his philosophical conviction, even as they confronted their imminent loss. The admiration in their eyes reflected the essence of their masters' teachings, an undying commitment to enlightenment, to uncovering the universal truths lying hidden beneath the facade of everyday existence. The tension in the air, like an elastic band stretched to its limits, threatened to snap a palpable reminder of the verdict looming over Socrates. Yet, in his heart, there rested an unyielding calm, a tranquility not born of resignation, but rooted in a life devoted to unwavering principles. As night crept in, enveloping the room in a comforting shroud, Socrates embraced the weight of his path, breathing life into each moment poured from the well of his wisdom. Ultimately, it was this serenity amidst the storm that etched itself into the memory of those who were there. It was a testament to the timeless nature of his philosophical journey, a quieting breath that spoke louder than any words of defiance could. In that room, under the watchful eyes of his followers, Socrates stood not on the precipice of despair, but on the brink of illumination, his legacy unfurling like a bright banner against the darkening Athenian sky. Sunlight streamed through the courtroom in fractured beams, creating a delicate interplay of light and shadow that danced across the ancient stone walls. These gold-hued shafts seemed to cradle Socrates in an ephemeral embrace, illuminating his figure with an almost otherworldly glow. The air was thick with the scent of aged cedarwood, mingling with the earthy undertones of trampled soil, a heady reminder of the permanence of nature against the transient existence of human life. Socrates stood poised at the center, his presence commanding yet humble, like a weathered sentinel contemplating both earth and sky. His robes, though simple, seemed to ripple like whispers of antiquity with each subtle shift, their fibers woven with the stories of past philosophers. Around him, the murmurs of the city could just be discerned through the open windows, vendors hawking olives, children laughing, the hum of life continuing outside this chamber of judgment. It was an irony not lost on the few who understood the gravity of these proceedings. Life thrived even as they conspired to condemn one of its greatest thinkers. Within the courtroom, every silence was potent, saturated with the anticipation of what was to come. Observers filled the benches in eager clusters, their expressions a tapestry of emotions: curiosity, ambivalence, regret. Some eyes flicked nervously to the ground, avoiding his gaze, as if acknowledging his truth might unravel their own tightly held convictions. Others watched him unflinchingly, perhaps searching for some crack in the facade of an outwardly unyielding man. Yet Socrates remained an island of tranquility amidst their sea of doubt and fear. Each beam of light seemed an allegory, hinting at the philosophical illumination he offered to future generations, an intimation of something that would outlast stone and flesh. As deliberations waned, the air vibrated with a nervous energy and the rustle of papyri, a prelude to the verdict that everyone held in tense anticipation. Socrates listened with serene acceptance, embodying the truth that the real prison is ignorance, not the confines of a cell. When the pronouncement finally came, his life to be ended by a draft of hemlock, there erupted a brief murmur, as if nature herself recoiled at the injustice. Yet, remarkably, Socrates met his fate with the same quiet dignity he had lived by, his bearing untroubled by the prospect of death. Elixirs of the mind proved more potent than the various poisons concocted by adversaries. Here was the ultimate disciple of his own teaching. The examined life, indeed, reached its pinnacle in his calm reflections before mortality. His inner thoughts mirrored the serene landscapes of a mind well-traveled. He pondered not the fear of oblivion, but the endless journey of the soul, perceiving death not as the end, but a transition into continued questioning and wisdom-seeking. As he stood there, Socrates found himself at peace, reassured by the knowledge that the seeds he planted would flourish in the garden of human thought. Every question inspired, every doubt aired, was a testament to his belief that wisdom was an undying quest. The court fell silent, not out of respect for the sentence, but out of awe for the man who embraced it without a tremor. As the final sunbeam illuminated his path to the unknown, Socrates offered a small, gentle smile, a silent promise that truth, like the sun, would rise again, undeterred by the shadows cast by man's fleeting folly. The cell was dimly lit, and though shadows danced along the rough-hewn walls, there lingered a profound sense of peace in the air. Socrates sat on the cold stone bench, his posture relaxed, yet possessing an unyielding nobility. The earthy scent of age-old stones filled his nostrils, mingling with the sharp tang of the hemlock that awaited him. Outside, the murmurs of the city continued, but in his chamber, there was an otherworldly quiet, the kind that accompanies the last moments on the precipice of man's eternal departure. He embraced his fate not with a semblance of resignation, but with an intrinsic understanding that his journey was a thread woven into the wider tapestry of human wisdom. As the time approached, Socrates felt a slight shiver run through his veins, but it was not fear. Rather, it was a thrill of anticipation. At stepping into the unknown, a transition into the realm of the eternal forms he had so often contemplated. The essence of his philosophy, of seeking truth and reflecting on virtue, seemed to unfurl within him, expanding beyond his corporeal existence to touch the distant echoes of time. In his mind, the vivid faces of those who had accompanied him on his philosophical odyssey flickered by Plato with his silent, contemplative gaze, the earnest enthusiasm of Crito, the lively exchanges with his interlocutors under the Athenian sun. Each conversation had been a vessel, guiding his interlocutors closer to the elusive treasures of the mind. He imagined these dialogues reverberating through the halls of time, reaching ears not yet born, challenging them to question, to doubt, and ultimately to seek the elusive light of truth. The cool, crisp air of Athens' evening brushed against his cheeks, as if the city's night itself came to bid him farewell. He closed his eyes briefly, inhaling deeply, each breath a testament to life and its transitory beauty. The sweet scent of olive trees, carried on the gentle night winds, mingled with the distant laughter from the agoras where life continued unabated, contrasting with the solemnity of his solitary vigil. In those moments of profound introspection, Socrates bore no animosity towards those who had found him guilty. Their judgment was, in his eyes, a guileless reflection of their own misunderstandings. He pitied them, not with arrogance, but with the compassion of a teacher for his misled pupil. Beneath his calm exterior, he felt a deep, abiding love for humanity, a species capable of incredible folly yet incredible wisdom. The guard entered, his presence unceremonious but respectful. Socrates acknowledged him with a gentle nod. With steady hands, he accepted the proffered cup, feeling its cool rim against his lips. The liquid within would soon still his heart, but his mind, his spirit, these transcended any mortal fetters. As he drank, the bitterness of the hemlock was sharp, yet it was tempered by an inner sweetness, the fulfillment of a life lived in pursuit of understanding. Socrates' eyes closed for the final time, not in reluctance but in serene acceptance. The legacy he left was not just in words or teachings, but in the courage to live authentically, to face the ultimate end with dignity and grace. And as the soul of Athens' most profound thinker slipped away, the whispering winds carried his philosophical essence onwards, threading through the ages, inviting each new listener to partake in the eternal dance of inquiry and enlightenment.